From questions about cucumbers to homes on cul-de-sacs, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show with Stan DeFreitas, the dad, and James DeFreitas, the son. For the next hour, call in with your questions in gardening, growing your favorite veggies, and growing your profits in real estate. Locally, call 813-289-1860. Toll free 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And a big good morning to you as we start off another edition of the Ask Mr. Greenthumb Gardening and Real Estate Show. And I am, of course, the dad, Stan, and you are?
And I'm James, the son, and we are here for the next 55 minutes to answer your gardening and or real estate questions. So if you have them, definitely give us a call today, 813-289-1860, and you've got the toll-free number.
And the toll-free number is 1-877-969-8600. Just to show you that I've been doing this for 40 years and can pump up the numbers if I need to.
40 years.
40 years.
40 years in the business.
In the business.
Holy
Summer stock.
smokes.
Yes. Hey, we've got...
Holy smokes.
Say hey to Terry's on there. Terry Kelly, our old buddy on Facebook Live. And one of the main reasons why we had a tough decision leaving BHHS, because he was such a nice guy, is a great guy. And that was one of our tough decisions.
Yeah, it sure was. Yeah, I mean, he's a super guy, great leader, and any real estate company out there would be so lucky to have a leader like him.
Well, that's true. In fact, we told our new folks, hey, when you move North County, we know who you need to draft.
Absolutely.
Not that he's any need to go anywhere, probably, but and in fact, the nice thing about where we are with Remax Metro is that everybody is like Terry Kelly down there. And that is what I think is unbelievable, that we've got like 6 Terry Kellys now, and you normally don't get that kind of quality in any place that you go to, and we are blessed that we do.
Absolutely. So I shouldn't say I downloaded. I took an article, I clipped it from the I think it was from the Realtor magazine that gets sent to us every month. But it was interesting, and I thought I might read it because if you grab something that's interesting,
go ahead.
You can share it with everybody in case they didn't get a chance to read it. So it's the title of the article says, and this is under their ethics. I find that under the ethics tab, that is, in my mind, it's the most interesting part of learning what people do, and this is important, especially newer agents. It's interesting because, often they will just kind of arbitrarily decide what they think is the right thing to do in the situation, not realizing that, there's been, decades and decades and decades of people who've come before you. And, the idea is almost every situation has been handled, and there's usually a proper way of addressing something. So one thing I would say is that's kind of what this article is getting at. So under the ethics section, it says, "Not from my MLS, go away!" ! So that's an interesting title. And it says, when a buyer's real estate professional lives out of the area, the listing agent does most of the work. What can you do to set boundaries? Well, so this was written by, and I don't know how to say her name, Ann Cocaine, it looks like. And it says, I'm working with Realtor John, who's representing a local buyer. Unfortunately, Realtor John doesn't live in the area. Since he didn't refer the business, he now expects me, the listing agent, to show my listing to his buyers. Realtor John doesn't have a lockbox access, which is a big inconvenience for me. The rule should say, hey, no lockbox, no access. Realtor John doesn't want to drive the 100 miles to show the listing. So, and then I told him that if he wants the buyer to see it, they can show it themselves. Otherwise, I'm keeping both sides of the commission since I'm doing both jobs. Realtor John got nasty. As far as I'm concerned, he needs to stay home and let me do my job in my zip code. What can I do about it? So that's kind of the quagmire. And again, I haven't even finished reading the article, but right off the bat, being inconvenienced as a real estate agent,
it's part of the game.
It's part of the job.
Yeah. I feel sorry for her, and I see where she's going, but I don't think she has a leg to stand on.
Right. So that's kind of what that's kind of where I'm headed with this as well. And it says, all right, so the advice from the legal expert says possessing an active real estate license in Florida legally permits an agent to sell real estate from the Panhandle to the Keys. Cooperating with agents who aren't members of your MLS can be a burden for the reasons that you've stated. Your ethical obligations under Article 3 of the Code of Ethics obligate you to cooperate to make the property available to other brokers for showing to prospective buyers and tenants per Standards of Practice 3-10. This means you must provide access unless it's not in your customer's best interest. If you subscribe to a no lockbox, no access philosophy, you are in violation of Article 3. So it's kind of what we expected.
What we expected, yeah.
It's what we expected. So
I understand why she's hacked, but still, you gotta. In this business, I mean, there is sometimes no weekends. There's not always holidays. There's times that you gotta get up and go, and we've done that. We've got some properties where, the other agent maybe that was going to show it couldn't show it, and we go show it because that's what you do,
right? Because at the end of the day, the inconvenience, that's your job.
I understand.
That's your job. And then unfortunately, sometimes you put the buyer and the seller cap on. To me, in what we do for RE/MAX Metro with the real estate auctions, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, hey, look, my job is to facilitate the transaction, to get it done in any way, shape, or form that's necessary. You had mentioned Terry Kelly. I mean, here he is as a market president. And, one of the things that really impressed me about him is that, one of the agents at the time, now he's moved on up to a market president himself, but I think he needed somebody to go show a property for him. To have a market president go out and show a property for somebody
above the call of duty.
Yeah, but
that's the reason he's one of the best.
That made an immediate impression upon me because I know not every Berkshire Hathaway market president would do that. And, and that's a shame because I do think it's at the end of the day, the market presidents should be there to facilitate and help the agents when they're in a bind. So, and so kudos to Terry. I think that's leading the way in a positive manner that sets the bar really high.
I agree, 1,000%. And also we've got Thomas Shabluk, one of our customers, who is our Michigan customer, who's he and his wife are half the time they're in Michigan, half the time they're here. Mm-hmm. But it's funny, they were customers, and they've been Facebook friends with us ever since. And
great people.
Almost every day, and I tend to agree with both of them when it comes to a lot of their posts that they put up. And I can't say that with so much these days. I don't know about you, but I'm going to be happy when this election's over. Sure. I'm so tired of the bitterness and the meanness and the divisiveness that I've seen, and I've never seen that before in my life. I mean, I remember back as a kid when, there was Kennedy and people who didn't like him for this reason or that reason, or people who didn't like Johnson or the different presidential choices we had. But I never saw the divisiveness, the meanness that I see today, and it doesn't make me happy as an American to see people that are just down their line so hard that they're ready to literally hurt the other person across the way from them because they don't believe exactly the same way they do.
Right, and that's such a shame too. I mean, you shouldn't, Again, wherever your politics lie, it shouldn't matter. If you put a bumper sticker on your car shouldn't be in danger of being hit or kicked or punched or what have you, or damage being done to it, because, it just shouldn't matter. And,
right.
And I think that, you couldn't say that today. You'd have to say, well, geez, if I put the wrong bumper sticker on there, I potentially could put myself in danger, especially in certain inner cities. I think that might be a real problem.
Might be in harm's way.
That might be in harm's way. But yeah. So, it's even more important that we have, a gardening real estate show that gets people out of having to think about the political divide and think about the beauty of the world, and which is more of your domain. Which
is what I love. I mean, my marigolds that I put out from seed, or I should say my lovely wife did mostly, out around the mailbox are just beautiful. And they're just reseeds.
Yeah, I saw them yesterday.
They're all just seeds we took from other marigolds.
Wow.
So, you can recycle seeds, and you should. It's the reason they're there. Sure. Now, you could go to the store and pay the $1.50 for the seeds if it makes you feel better.
And I have.
And we do. But I'm getting to a point now, too, where I want to put in some more veggies and stuff. I'm on my perennial, eat healthier routine, which means, veggies, and more veggies, which is something we all should do. People go, well, how do we decide which veggies are good? Well, if it's not cooked in grease, it's probably better for you. Sure. And I know they go, well, look, I'm eating French fries. It's a vegetable. Yeah, kinda. You're eating a vegetable, but maybe not quite the healthiest for you and your heart.
Sure.
So, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, all of that group we know are healthier for you.
Sure, and something that's interesting too, in your situation and maybe to other situation, if you're on certain medications, you got to be careful about the foods that you're eating. And again, I think that the pharmacist you bumped into was probably correct in that if you're getting it from a food, that's probably much better
than if you're taking a pill.
Now, I see our good buddy Terry has asked a question here on Facebook Live, and I'm going to try to pull it back up. So,
which he's a wealth of information, so maybe he's just asking a question for the rest of us out there.
He's saying, what can you put around your plants to keep the bugs away?
Well, sometimes as simple as soapy water will work.
So you'll have really clean bugs.
Well, yeah. The thing about bugs is when they've got little, their breathing apparatuses are usually underneath their there's the head, abdomen, and thorax. And around the abdomen area, they have their little spherical things where they can bring in their air. And when soapy water gets into there, it tends to shut that down for many of them. So soapy water is probably one of your easiest defenses on bugs. And, unless you want to break into other pesticides, sure. And there are a bunch of them that can be used and that are pretty effective and relatively non-toxic today.
Sure.
Compared to what we used to use.
Absolutely, yeah. So if anybody wants to give us a call, they can. 813-289-1860. We are here for the next 40 minutes.
We are, of course, the Ask Mr. Greenthumb gardening and real estate show. So if you've got a question relating to either, we'd like you to be a part of our show.
Want to talk real estate auctions? Call James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127 or go online at aflre.com. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Connect online at askmrgreenthumb.com. Got questions on gardening, real estate, or both? Call now, 813-289-1860. Toll free, 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And we're here to help. We were saying last week we had one of our friends from BHHS that gave us a listing to help him with, and we picked it up on a Friday 2 weeks ago and got it sold that next Saturday.
That's right.
Which was great.
That's how good we are.
Yeah, hey, I'm going to say, it's kind of fun to do that now because you listen to all the agents go, hey, I sold it in 35 minutes. And you're going, oh, gosh, here someone's going to tell you. But now you and I can say, hey, within 24 hours, we had a listing and picked it up and we sold it.
That's right. We barely had time to put the sign in the ground. I mean, it was almost a thought sale.
It's exactly.
It was, we thought it and it sold.
It's funny, too, because I've had a bunch. I bet I've had 20 calls on that property now going, hey, could we?
I'd never heard of Arapica. I mean, that was, a small fishing village with, 300 people, permanent residents there.
With their claim to fame that Babe Ruth, the Bambino, used to like to go fish up there.
Right. I mean, that's right up there with Meet the Man Who Met the Andy Griffith. I mean, it's one of those scenarios where you're thinking to myself, it's just a small little town. You can tell that it's an old, Florida cracker home. All of those areas up there, they have old Florida cracker homes up there, and it's neat. It's a neat area. I like the old post office. The new one looks like it was built without any character to
1960s concrete block, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Where the old one has some style, doesn't it?
Yeah, the old one was built with a corrections penitentiary in mind, and but the very old one was done with you could tell somebody hand built it. So, and I'm glad they kept it and made that part of their historical. They have a little historical sign in front of it.
I talked to my cousin the other day, Bill Miller, and he was saying that I asked him. I said, "Do you know about Arapica?" And of course he did.
Mm-hmm. I bet he did.
Yeah, well, he's been all over the state hunting and stuff. Most of his life, and I thought if somebody knew about fishing, he would, because he used to love to be an avid fisherman as well. So when I said, "Hey, Bill, I just wanted to see if have you ever heard of Arapica?" And of course, there again, it was the name they took from a sawmill near there, which they called Arapica, and it goes back to a Native American. Of course, I hate to say it, we basically stole their land, but we do leave their name, which is kind of nice.
Oh, sure. It's a nice reminder of the land that we stole by honoring them with, it just, it's ironic as hell that we do that kind of stuff.
Well, Wiki Wachi, Kissimmee, there's a bunch of names that we have that we do honor.
Right. You won't find the first Native American, but you'll find their name.
Which I always kind of bothers me just a tad, but...
Yeah, well, that's
there again, time and history have gone on. Actually, Arapica was started about 8 years after the ending of the Civil War. So going back some time, there were some stout, hardy people back then, too. Came in, there wasn't air, there wasn't cable, there were log cabins, and most everybody came down from somewhere up north, and they were going, this is great. We don't have all this cold winter to fight. We do have summer that lasts about 12 months a year, but and we do have, mosquitoes that can pick you up and take you off, especially in the old days. You talk about mosquitoes now. I remember mosquitoes growing up in Northeast St. Pete we had a lot of ditches back then. You didn't have, I try to find a ditch in Northeast St. Pete anymore.
A lot of ditches in Oldsmar.
Well, there are, and we do have our share of some mosquitoes, as you will know, which is where I live now. I've lived in St. Pete. I grew up in St. Pete, went to St. Pete High, Green Devil, and, as I say, I should have stayed with baseball. I say when I was 10, found out my grandmother's cousin was Ty Cobb and led my team in stolen bases and hits. Should have stayed with baseball. I got foolish and went off with track and cross country, which were not the glory sports. And
unless you go into like Olympian or something.
Yeah, well, I wasn't quite that category. Almost that. I'd like the older I get, the better I was.
Well, you were like KK root beer, right?
I had a 500 batting average.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was amazing. But I hated to walk, so I always got up there and swung at the fences, and. I didn't hit a home run a lot, but I always got a base hit. I don't ever remember a game through my young life that I didn't get a hit.
Yeah, it seems to me, though, that if you were coaching Little League or for professional, walk is good.
Well, it is.
It's not a glory. It's not like a touchdown, but you know what? I would think that rather than hitting a pop fly that gets caught every time in the outfield, it would make more sense to encourage kids to walk and be proud of walking.
Yeah, but see, in Little League, if you hit a pop fly, they don't get caught like they do in the pros. In the pros, you're going, oh, well, he's got it. Kermeyer's out there, and you go, hey, KK's going to catch it. But you can almost take that to the bank. And
I guess I've been watching too much of the Little League World Series because those kids catch it.
They catch it. Well, by that time, even Little League, you've learned all the fundamentals that you're going to use the rest of your career.
And you got to love the Little League World Series. They'll bring in a kid from Cuba that's 24 and go, yeah, he's 17, no problem.
Hey, he's got a little bit of a beard, but
yeah, he's got a full beard, and they're going to call the kid 17. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to be out of your mind. This kid's ready for the regular, at least AAA ball.
Well, he was 17 at one point.
Yeah, he was 17 at one point 8 years ago.
Isn't it the truth?
Yeah.
Well, we're here to answer your questions, be it real estate, and I like that you brought in something on the ethics, which I think is always a question and is something we all need. Most realtors that we come across are ethical. Most of them. I'd say 99% of the time. Like people say, oh, there's a bad cop out there. Well, sure there is, on occasion.
Sure.
99% of the cops out there, policemen, are good guys doing a good job.
That's right.
So, anyway, we want you to stay with us as the Plant Talk, Real Estate Talk continues right here on AM 860, The Answer.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at askmrgreenthumb.com. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial problems with flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Call now, 813-289-1860. Toll free, 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And as the show continues, we're here, of course, to answer any and all of your questions that may arise. It's nice time out there. I see golden rain trees are in bloom all over, with kind of the yellow bloom with a pink papery seed capsule that comes behind it. And it's one of the ways you know that fall is here, which is hard to tell because, when it's 90 degrees out there, you're going, fall is here? And you're going, well, kind of. You can kind of feel it in the morning sometimes, a little bit cooler. The daylight's a little bit less. There are subtle signs that obviously the plants pick up on more than we do. And so you're thinking, well, plants don't think. Well, they may not think, but they
have a cycle.
They have a cycle that they go by.
Sure. And they certainly respond to environmental changes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we have, I think it's Ellie, and Ellie Bernard is going to be
fantastic. Let's bring her online.
Let's go, Ellie. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Well, just super duper. And tell us a little bit about who you are and where you are and your phone number and stuff. Tell us about one of your listings.
I am a realtor in St. Petersburg. I've been a realtor for about 17 years now. I work for Smith & Associates, and I do a majority of my business in the downtown northeast St. Petersburg area and, of course, some beaches. And my cell number is 727-560-4377.
Oh, that's great. Well, tell us about now. You're in what I call some of the prime area. When you're downtown St. Pete and northeast St. Pete, that area seems to be just sizzling all the time. It seems like everybody really, really wants to be in those zip codes. And you got anything that's coming up that somebody might want to put a bid in on, maybe want to buy?
Well, I have a beautiful downtown penthouse condo at the Bliss Building. It's 4,300 square feet.
Wow.
It is all glass windows. It's absolutely gorgeous. It has its own private elevator. And it is just one of a kind. It's something that's just not that you really find in the condo area downtown.
Yeah, that sounds like a really big, condo. And also, when you start talking about your private elevator, that starts giving the exclusivity. And what kind of price are we looking for something like that?
Well, we're listed at $5.25 million, but again, it is an exceptional piece that has no common walls. It comes with 4 parking spaces. It's a very boutique building with only 29 units, and the building sits on a location where nothing will be built in front of it. It's got the beautiful waterfront parks that we're known for downtown, so it's one of a kind.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a unique property. I saw Mikey's eyes in the room in there, and my board lit up, and he put his hand up that he wanted to buy, but then he decided it's going to take a few more years working here to come up with a downstroke.
So quick question for you. So do you just specialize in the upper end luxury market?
I don't. I am a realtor that does all types, all areas of price points. It's something that I am very passionate about. My family is in the industry, and helping someone make a sale, whether it's their first or whether it's their luxury home, is something that I just enjoy a lot.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, because one of the things that was put to me when I first got into the business is somebody said, listen, James, it doesn't matter if you're selling $100,000 property or a $5.2 million property. They both deserve an equal level of service. Now, he put a caveat with that. He told me, he said, listen, he says, now there may be more effort and money involved in the higher end listings in terms of advertising and stuff, but as far as your professionalism, you're still owing that to them regardless of the spend. And that's something that stuck with me, and I've been in the business for, this will be my 18th year in the business. And
wow.
Yeah, so I've been in the business quite a while, and so it's and I was originally licensed up in South Carolina, and so and the laws in South Carolina and Florida are very, very similar. So when I moved back down to Florida, I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I've heard all of this before. But one interesting factoid is that here we're allowed, since we transact as transaction brokers, we can work both sides of the transaction, whereas up in South Carolina, you cannot. You can either choose to be one or the other, but not both.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
does that mean you got to be always on one side, or can you change?
Well, no, you can be on either side. You just can't be on both sides in the same transaction. So what happens, or at least what would happen in the brokerage I was with, is the brokerage could go ahead and handle it, but you would go ahead and then pick another agent that you liked within your office to handle the other side of the transaction that you weren't on. Know.
So you kind of got around it that way.
Yeah, so you'd get around it. So the brokerage would get both sides of the commission, but the agent wouldn't be eligible for that. So that's an interesting, and there are several other states that do that too. Now, I personally think if you're transacting as a transaction broker and everybody understands the role and nature that the duties that are owed under that,
right?
I feel like if you're an ethical person, you should be able to handle both sides and make everyone realize that you're not going to put either side at an unfair advantage, But that's my thinking on it.
I agree with you. That's the only way that I've done real estate is as a transaction broker. I am a native of St. Petersburg and lived here my whole life. And when I got into it, we were transaction brokers at that point in time. And then if you wanted to be a single agent or needed to be a single agent, then you would have the correct paperwork to do so. But
sure.
I just feel that if you work ethically and you work on behalf of the transaction and you do your fiduciary responsibilities, then, it's definitely doable and can be done that way.
Sure.
So, Ellie, were you born in Mountain Park?
Or
You were. So was I. And I think most of old St. Petersburg folks were born, it's either St. Anthony's or Mountain Park. And I was happy to say my granddad was the first chief of staff at Mountain Park.
Oh, I love that.
Dr. Miller. And he apparently, in his old days, used to bring food in boxes to his patients that couldn't get out. In the old days, downtown St. Pete, he would sometimes forget where he left his old Model T, but he would be out bringing food to different folks. And I wrote a gardening book for Florida, and I had a person come up to me and he says, I bought a dozen of my gardening books. And I said, why are you doing that? And he said, well, because your granddad, when I was a poor kid back during the Depression time, never charged me a dime or any kid that came to him. So, back then I think there was truly the thing of the doctors really cared about their patients, and they may today too. But today often they go into the office and I feel like it's, how do you intend to pay? Do you have the right insurance? and that's even for the doctors you like. I mean, that's the ones where you're happy. So anyway.
That's very interesting. Yes.
So what high school did you go to?
I graduated from Pinellas Park High School. I grew up in Feather Sound, and my mother's been a broker, my whole life. She had her real estate license when I was 1. You may know her. Her name is Nancy Riley.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's in your blood.
It is in my blood, and so that's where we were zoned, and that's where I went.
Ah, okay. Well, I went to St. Pete High. I could have gone to Northeast, but I went to St. Pete High because my grandmother had been the first music teacher at St. Pete High. And so actually she'd started back when St. Pete was at Mirror Lake, just to show how long ago that was.
Wow.
And Mirror Lake is, it's a little lake downtown, and it was a small school. I remember going there once or twice to it was a junior high for a while, but by the time I would have gone to Mirror Lake, we went to the new school, which was Riviera, which now has been torn down.
Both of my boys went to St. Pete High School.
Ah, see?
Yeah. Yes.
So when they talk about Miller Hall up in the upper music area up there, that was named after my grandma Gertrude Miller. Who went to met my granddad in New York. She went to Columbia Medical, and he went to medical school in Columbia, and she went to Juilliard. So
love it.
They were both well trained. I don't know where all this great genetics went, but I guess my son picked it up. It skipped a generation and went to my son because he is really good at almost everything he does, and I'm okay at a few things.
I think you're more than okay on a few things. Come on now.
But well, that sounds like a wonderful property. Give us the address again, and I'm sure it's probably got special parking and stuff too.
It's located at 176 4th Avenue Northeast. It's unit 1801. It's the penthouse. There's street parking out front, and then, of course, there's all parking around. The interior for parking spaces do come, obviously, with the fob and private entrance. It's a gated building, but just located right on basically Beach Drive behind, actually the Smith & Associates building.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
That's pretty. Now, do you still get the calls at that price point where, we get them sometimes, people are going, hey, I'd like to offer you, about, you're asking 5? I'd like to offer
How about
you
2.5?
Yeah, 2.5. How would that be? And you're going, well, thanks for participating, but no. And
we try to kind of screen and ask questions prior to a showing. And being an agent here for so long, you get to know the other agents, so you know kind of who's bringing the buyer in that's a little bit more already qualified. Yeah.
That's and at that price point, you don't expect somebody to come in and not be ready, be viable or bona fide. But we just came from a small transaction up in Arapika, where the poor customer they waited till the day of closing for the guy to tell them, oh, by the way, I went to the bank the other day and there's no money. Going, the poor agent was like pulling their hair out. But we want to. All right, why don't we hold you here? You want to stay with us on the other side of the, since you're such a delightful call, we'll come right back to the other side of the break here.
Wonderful.
So stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate Talk continues.
Want to talk real estate auctions? Call James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127 or go online at aflre.com. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Connect online at askmrgreenthumb.com. Got questions on gardening, real estate, or both? Call now, 813-289-1860. Toll free, 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And we're back to answering your questions. And we did have one comment there from our buddy, who was it? Steve Wickner. And Steve just says he was down to the Marie Selby Botanical Gardens, and it was beautiful. And I haven't been there in years, but I used to go down every few years and give talks when they wanted someone to give a lecture. Haven't done that. I used to do a bunch of that. I mean, I did a bunch of garden clubs, a bunch of home shows and things. But
why not? They would provide free lunch and a $25 gift card.
Hey,
so,
if you were lucky.
Yeah, well, that almost pays for the gas to drive there.
Well, it was good to see my loyal fans. We have Ellie who's still with us. Ellie, and it sounds like you've got some really nice listings. Is this one your main listing you're pushing right now?
I also have another listing at 320 Coffee Pot Riviera Northeast, which is one of my favorite streets in all of St. Petersburg. Mm-hmm. Very historic, and it's got a lot of charm to it. We are in the midst of negotiating an offer, but I wanted to put it out there as well because it's just so special. It's smaller. It's a 3,075 square foot home, but it's got so much character and just has a lot to offer that I wanted to put that out there as well.
Sure. Well, that sounds nice. I mean, all those properties down there of all, I bet it's probably a little over $1 million, I bet.
Yes, it's listed at 2.29. We started a little bit higher. We reduced it. We've had a lot of interest in some showings, and it's really nice because in your backyard you get the historic Snell Isle Bridge as your view, and it just is almost it's a little over a quarter acre, 0.35 acres, which is nice as well.
Sure, yeah, that's a beautiful area down there. I remember paddling boats and stuff around there as a kid. But I grew up in Northeast St. Pete, a little bungalow, And as I always say, I was near the folks with money, but
you could almost smell it.
Yes, I was close. For fun, sometimes I used to run from my little house, which was over by North Shore School. We'd run over through the golf course, over the bridge to St. Pete High and back. And that was back in a different life when I was a runner.
What was it? Why don't you tell that story, Dad, about the lady who's talking about the rats and never having, they don't go.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. When I was an extension horticulturist, and I was for 8 years, had a lady call up one time, and she called up and she talked about, there were holes in the side of her citrus fruit. And I said, well, that's citrus rats. And she goes, young man, you don't understand. I live in Snell Isle. And I said, well, maybe they've got little tuxedos on, but they're still citrus rats. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get fired for being a smart tail. But, she was so sure that they don't cross that little bridge to come over into Snell Isle. And I thought, they love your grapefruit just about as well as, maybe even more so than the one on the other side of the bridge.
My goodness.
Which are both. But I did think it was kind of ironic that she really thought because you lived in Snell Isle, you could not have, they can get into Culberth Isles, they can get into Snell Isles. They have no boundary.
They don't know class and money, and so shame on them. They should definitely know these things. So I have a question for you. So in your 17 years in the business, I'm sure you have an interesting real estate story that's taken place. And the reason that I like to ask this of agents when they call in is because, to me, every circumstance that we go through, it's a teachable moment for other agents, especially if they're new to the business.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the things we had happen last year, we had an awful closing that occurred, and it broke down to having our seller, the seller's daughter. We didn't know this. The seller's daughter had put an extra refrigerator in a home. Well, she went by the day before closing, before the walkthrough, and took the refrigerator out.
Oh no!
Yeah,
which caused us trouble.
Which caused us trouble. No. Yeah, so to try to remedy the situation, we wound up as a credit, out of our commission, we wound up just buying a refrigerator, and because the commission was so high at that point, I didn't really care. But again, it's one of these kinds of things that happens that I don't think new agents to the business, after they've gone through Bob Hope's School of Real Estate, expect that they're going to buy a refrigerator at some point in their career. And they might, and it may not be anything that you can prevent. It may just be done without anybody telling you anything.
Yep. You're not going to put milk in that refrigerator, but you're still going to pay for it, maybe.
Yeah.
Or at least partly.
So give us an interesting story that you've had.
We're putting you on the spot here, Ellie. Boom, 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 boom.
I'm sorry. Mine that sticks with me is one that it happened a few years ago, and we were going to the closing table. I had the listing, and I had it for quite a while. And the seller needed to get the bathroom the fan vented from the attic to outside, and was struggling trying to find somebody to do it for him, and went away for about a few weeks, came back, and we went to the closing table with that unfinished, but said that he would fix the item. And the day before, I had got an invoice for that item to be fixed. And so the buyer ended up walking away thinking that they were in default of the contract. We had about $50,000 in escrow, and they got an attorney, and I put I think it was $100. I can't remember what it says in the contract, but there's an allotted amount that you can put in escrow and work according to getting the item fixed if you couldn't get it fixed in a timely manner. And I also got the item fixed the day of closing. So long story short, the seller got the escrow.
Sure. Well, that's great. So the buyer didn't wind up closing, and the seller got to keep the escrow. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Wow.
So they were happy with you.
Well, the buyer must have been really thrilled with that transaction. but yeah, I mean, and that's a good point, because at the end of the day, it's what's in the contract. That is the controlling, articles that we have to go by. I mean, that's what the attorney's going to go by when attorneys get involved. And I hate when attorneys get involved, because when they get involved, things often get more complicated, not less. And, and you're thinking, well, geez, if I get them involved. But one of the things that happens that I find with attorneys is that they will find the minutia on top of minutia. And I'm going,
right.
You're making it more complicated. We need to make this less complicated. So if I had one advice for new attorneys into the business, especially real estate, try to find common ground where you can. And, and especially in a real estate transaction, there's no place for retaliatory conduct. You just... Let's get something handled. What will you agree to? What will you agree to? And let's get this agreed and put it in writing, and let's get it done.
And at the end of the day, it was like a $150 item that needed to be fixed.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I learned is you never play attorney.
Yep.
You work according to contract. That is our job, and we don't play attorney.
That's true.
And it just at the end of the day, didn't work out for the buyer.
It always reminds me of Judge Judy. She always goes, it's between the four corners of the page. And she's right. Everything that's written is what you have to go by. And it's not something that verbally somebody talked about.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. I mean, and the other thing, too, is that I find, as long as you've studied the document, you see what's in there, if there's any exceptions, hey, that doesn't convey, this does convey. One of the policies I have is, hey, listen, if it doesn't convey, we're either going to write a note on it that says doesn't convey or you're going to get it out of here. Okay, because I don't want that to be in there and even look like it's going to be part of the transaction.
But don't wait till the day before closing.
Right, or don't even tell me that it's your daughter's refrigerator. I mean, and apparently the mother didn't even realize that the daughter had been storing a refrigerator there. And in the contract, in the general as-is contract, it says it has a plural right next to refrigerators. Sure. And so they were well within their rights to say, oh, no, you didn't say that didn't go in there. So, and really the big problem that we had is that, we were arbitering over the amount of the refrigerator. That was the bigger issue.
Ellie, give us your phone number again here real quickly because we're running out of time.
It's Ellie Bernard with Smith & Associates, 727-560-4377.
Ellie, we hope that we give you some business comes from this. And as we always say, no fee, no charge. We're here to try to help folks, and we hope this helps you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being a part of our show today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And see you next week.